Okay, grade seven. So in social studies, we are moving into unit two. So the second unit of the textbook. There is a third unit, which we'll be getting to in the new year. The second unit is kind of the lead up to Confederation, but it really focuses on some of the conflicts that have gone on in the past in North America. The conflicts principally spanning the time period between 1713 really 1755 to about 1812, 1814. Um, those conflicts included, obviously, I've mentioned the Seven Years' War, which is the one from 1755 to 1763. They included the American Revolution or the American War of Independence, depending on which side of the border you happen to fall on, from 1776 to 1781. And the War of 1812, which went from 1812 to around 1814 ish. We'll be looking at specific uh, aspects of those conflicts. And bear in mind that to understand how those conflicts shaped Canada and shaped the mentality of the people in Canada, you kind of need to spend a bit of time doing some independent looking, some reading, because the textbook won't give you everything. Um, now, there are a lot of films, both documentary and non-documentary films, based in this time period. There are a lot of information about things like the American Revolution, things like that time period, where you'll get a sense of what society was like. Now, if you wanted to watch a film um, based in that time period, you might look at The Patriot. It's a 1990s or early 2000s film. It is a highly rated film, so I believe it is rated R. And so I don't strongly recommend it to be watched without parental permission. I strongly encourage the parental permission, or better yet, parental previewing. Most of your parents or other custodians or guardians will be aware of the film. They probably saw it themselves, but it might be a question as to whether or not it'd be something for you. Other documentaries could include, and I will include some of them on the Google Classroom, things like Bloody Boston, which talks about the Boston Massacre, or the Rise to Rebellion, which talks about the American Revolution, mostly from an American perspective. So some of these videos I will try and post, or I'll post links to these things. But you've got to not only move into reading of the text, you've got to actively start trying to dig into some of this stuff outside of the textbook. You've got to start looking into it and recognizing the role that the animosities between France and England played early in the colonial development, and how that built to the Seven Years' War. And then you have to start looking at how the social development of the 13 colonies, the colonies in what on the eastern seaboard, how the development of their independent elected assemblies played a role in establishing the animosity towards Britain, and so which led to the American Revolution of 1776. And then you need to also understand how the movement of people during those two conflicts built a sense of split identity between the British colonies in North America, in Canada, and the American identity in south of the border. And so you need to see then that the loyalists who came up from America, from those 13 colonies during the American Revolution, and established their homes in North America, played a significant role in changing the face of what Canada would become. Anyway, these are all aspects that are in the textbook, but they're also things for you to be thinking about and reading about and watching documentaries and movies about. So there's lots of information about this particular time period out there. It's a really fascinating time period, but you need to understand just how different the world was from what we experience now, from the technologically driven society we have. Um, the 1700s and early 1800s were nothing like this. They were so dramatically different as to be a totally different world. And so becoming familiar with those concepts, the pre-industrial revolution world of the 1700s, the shortly post-industrial revolution of the late 17, early 1800s, the drive of technology, the sudden booming of technology, the interactions, coexistence or lack of coexistence between Europeans and First Nations in North America, all of these things start to play a major factor in the development of this nation. So take some time, go and do some looking, go and do some research, and yes, obviously read the textbook. I've got most of the videos for Chapter 5 posted. Give them a look-see. Pay particular attention to the expulsion of the Acadians. So this was a significant issue. Um, Historically, it occurred in about 1755, between 1755 and 1763, where the French-speaking peoples of Acadia, which was a French colony that was ceded to Britain in 1713, they were literally kicked out of Canada, out of British-controlled territory. They were told to get on boats and go, and they were given the boats. They were allowed to carry what they could, and everything else was left behind. And the Crown took control of all of it. They took control of all of their old possessions and gave the farms away to British-speaking, British-supporting people. I want you to think about how that changed the dynamic of what Canada could have, would have, might have, should have become, and think about what it means uh, to have that kind of an event in our past. Was kicking people out of our country, which at the time wasn't a country yet, but was doing something like that fundamentally wrong? Is it fundamentally wrong to um, isolate and target a specific group of people because of their ethnicity, their language, their heritage, and um, physically act against them? There are a couple of terms for this kind of stuff. One is ethnic cleansing. Um, One is genocide, cultural genocide. So these are terms and things that you need to look into and consider. These are terms that have been applied to the expulsion of the Acadians. They are terms that have been applied to many of our interactions with First Nations people over the course of Canada's history. We have involved ourselves in prejudicial behavior as a nation, even in modern times, as recently as the Second World War or more. So consider what Canada's actions have been historically, and then look at Canada itself as a big picture and how those things may or may not have influenced how Canada as a nation behaves to our Indigenous people, to our French-speaking populations, to our immigrants, to our minority groups within the nation, and how our society has changed as a result of these things. Okay, over to you, grade 7. Good luck and enjoy the day.